My beloved child, there was a very small moment that just occurred within you, so small that if you were rushing, you might have passed over it as you have so many times before. You were looking at the screen, letting the words scroll by, and then suddenly something caused you to pause. Not curiosity, but a subtle inner shift, as though your soul brushed against a familiar signal you had never dared to name. I spoke to you in that instant. What you are sensing is not random, nor is it the product of overthinking. It is your soul receiving a signal, and at last you have grown quiet enough to hear it. I did not come to add confusion to days already filled with noise. I do not sow fear and then leave you standing alone with it. I came to clarify what you have been carrying in a vague, unspoken way for a long time. There are questions that keep circling in your mind, sensations that return whenever you are by yourself, stretches of silence that feel heavier than usual and that you do not know how to fill. I tell you this, these are not signs that you are losing your way, but signs that you are beginning to see correctly. There are moments when you fault yourself for being unable to explain this feeling through reason. You want a neat cause, a logical explanation that would reassure you that everything is still fine. But I do not require you to understand immediately. I only call you to pause, because if you keep running, you will miss the moment when your soul is being awakened. What is stirring within you has not come to break you, but to draw you out of a fog that has lasted far too long. Right now, I place my hand upon your spiritual eyes, not to force you to see what you are not ready for, but to help you stop closing your eyes to what has knocked again and again. I know your heart is beating faster, not exactly from fear, but from the sense that something is about to be revealed. I do not reproach your hesitation. I simply speak close enough for you to hear. Look, and do not be afraid. What is opening before you has not come to lead you astray, but to bring you back to a truth you have felt for a very long time. I do not speak in circles at this hour, because your soul is weary of guessing. I speak plainly so you no longer have to suspend yourself between assumptions. I am lifting the veil, but not to harm you. I do not pull truth into the light so you can wield it like a blade, nor do I give it to you so you can strike back. I lift the veil so that you may be free from rooms you have remained in far too long simply because you believed they hurt less. You have seen truth wound others, and so you learned to fear it. You have seen light used to judge, and so you grew accustomed to standing in the shadows. But my truth does not come to shame you. It comes to unlock you, not so you must break the bars, but so you may realize the door has been open for a long time. Some things are hidden not because they are complex, but because you have grown used to living in dimness and calling that dimness stability. I know you have told yourself that as long as no one leaves, as long as nothing collides too hard, then everything is worth preserving. You traded clarity for temporary quiet, but I tell you, silence is not always peace. Sometimes silence is merely an unspoken agreement with fear that if you do not touch the truth, you will not have to pay the price. I will not allow you to build your life on such a foundation, because it will collapse when you are at your weakest. As light begins to pour in, you will feel both afraid and lighter at once, like someone stepping from a dark room into brightness. Eyes stinging not because the light is cruel, but because they have grown used to shadow. Do not misunderstand that sensation. It is not a sign that I am hurting you. It is a sign that you are leaving a place where you have long learned to endure. I stand between the light and your soul so that the light does not crush you, but leads you forward. I will not reveal everything at once. I know your strength. I know your limits. I show you what you need to know enough to keep you from being trapped, but not so much that you panic. And if the question rises within you, what happens once I know? I answer you immediately once you know. You will no longer have to live by guessing. I lift the veil not so you lose what you are holding on to, but so you stop losing yourself within the haze. There are things you have carried for so long that you came to believe they were part of who you are. You stayed silent to keep the peace. You swallowed your needs so nothing would shatter. You braced yourself so others would not be uncomfortable, and you called that maturity. But I say to you that silence was never my covenant. It was only the survival reflex of a soul that learned how to exist in places not safe enough for truth. You grew accustomed to asking, "What did I do wrong?" whenever the atmosphere shifted. You learned to apologize before you even knew whether you were at fault. You learned to shrink your voice so that others would not feel disturbed. I see every time you swallowed your words, every time you smiled while tightening inside. I know you did this not because you were weak, but because you feared that speaking would cost you the little you were still holding. But I tell you, those burdens were never yours to carry. There are responsibilities you assumed that I never assigned. There are emotions you bore on behalf of others simply because you loved them more than yourself. You carried anger that was not yours, shame that was not yours, and even the consequences of choices you did not make. I do not condemn you for enduring. I return truth to you so that you may be lightened. What does not belong to you no longer needs to remain upon your shoulders. Therefore, in this hour, I begin restoring to you what has been taken for far too long. I restore your voice so you no longer have to whisper what matters. I restore your dignity so you do not need anyone's permission to be respected. I restore your boundaries so you know where you end and where others begin. As these things return, you will feel a tightening in your throat that is painful yet right, as though someone has finally named the weariness you have hidden. And if you find yourself wanting to weep as you realize, I have endured for too long. I am here to tell you this: you are not weak for having endured. You simply need permission to stop enduring. I do not call you to keep carrying what drains you. I call you to set it down and to walk forward with what truly belongs to you. I prepare you for truth in the way of one who knows the rhythm of your heart. There were times in the past when I knocked very gently, but you were too busy to hear, or you heard and pretended it was nothing. So now the knock is firmer, not to frighten you, but so you can no longer ignore it. I say to you, do not panic when truth is not as gentle as you hoped. It is not harsh because it is cruel. It is direct because it is necessary. Inside you there is a very real tension. One part of you wants to know everything immediately. Another part is afraid that if you know, you will not be able to bear it. I see that struggle. I know you are thinking, if the veil is pulled back, will you have the strength to stand? I tell you right now, you do not need more signs to be certain. You need a posture of readiness so you do not turn away. Truth does not demand that you become stronger. It only asks that you do not run. The air around you is changing, as if the familiar room has suddenly tightened, as if a curtain has trembled though no one touched it. You feel it in your chest, in the way your breath shortens, in an unease you cannot name. I do not allow these signs to come to confuse you. I allow them to appear so you will know this moment is real, that something is being opened, and you no longer need to ask yourself, am I imagining this? I will not pour truth over you like a waterfall. I know that if I open too quickly, you will panic. If I open too little, you will remain trapped in the old loop. So I say I will show you what you need to know, not so much that you break, and not so little that you stay blind. You do not need to prepare answers. You only need to stay. Because in your refusal to run, you will discover that you are not alone when the veil begins to tremble. I am calling you to look back, but not so you return to what tore you. Looking back is not living in the past. Looking back is decoding why pain has been leading you in silence. There are memories you have locked away tightly, not because you forgot, but because you feared that if you opened them, you would collapse. I tell you, I am not opening them to make you fall. I am opening them to remove the arrow so the wound no longer has to hold what has been lodged inside it for too long. When your gaze touches what was once covered, your heart will tremble, not because you are weak, but because you are standing before a truth you have avoided naming. I am there. I am not keeping you inside the memory. I am leading you through it. You will realize that what hurt you most was not only what happened, but that you had to carry it alone. That you had to stay quiet so everything could still look fine. Joseph once stood before his brothers, And in the moment when tears broke through, he recognized the truth not to take revenge, but to stop living behind concealment. I let you recognize truth in that way as well, not to pull you back, not to trap you in what is past, but so truth can be called by its proper name and no longer control you from behind. You are not returning to the old place to endure one more time. You are only bending down to pick up what belongs to you, your voice, your discernment, your right to say enough, and then you move forward. The memory no longer grips your wrist. It stands behind you as something that has been faced, while you walk ahead into what I am opening. I will not leave you suspended after what has just been uncovered. Even as you are still trying to steady your breathing, I place within you a word as an anchor, not to explain everything, but to give you something to hold as the light continues to spread. I tell you clearly, I draw back the veil because I love you, not because you are stronger than others, and not because you have done everything right, but because you have reached the hour when you must be freed from the ambiguity that has held you for too long. You have wondered whether you were thinking too much, whether those quiet, smoldering sensations were simply weakness. I answer you now, you are not crazy, and you are not overreacting. There were things your soul recognized before your mind could name them. I am simply aligning what you have already felt, so you no longer have to doubt yourself whenever truth brushes gently against your inner life. And if there is still an urge in you to run, to fill the space with actions or explanations, I am calling you to stay. Not to stay in fear, but to stay in my presence, right here. As you stop trying to control the pace of what is opening, you will see that truth does not come like a storm, but like a current of air strong enough to push you out of the old place. I am drawing back the veil, and I will not leave you for even one step as the light moves deeper into the places you once avoided. You do not fear truth because it is too sharp. You fear it because you were once wounded when you opened your mouth. I saw that moment when you spoke what was right and the atmosphere changed. When the eyes before you turned cold. When your voice was cut off by a silence thick as a wall. You learned quickly. My child, you learned to swallow your words, to read the room before reading your own heart, to lower your voice so you would not make anyone uncomfortable. I know why your hand trembles when truth draws near. Old memory still has teeth marks on your throat. You once paid a price for honesty, so you called avoidance wisdom. You called silence peace. You called shrinking back safety. I do not blame you for defending yourself. I was there when you typed a message and deleted it. When you wanted to explain, but your throat tightened. When you chose to smile it off so the gathering would not fall apart. I watched you retreat step by step, not because you were deceitful, but because you were trying to survive. But I tell you this plainly, my truth does not come to make you unsafe. It comes to give you boundaries. Boundaries are not walls that close you in. Boundaries are breathing lines that keep your soul from being drained. When you speak truth in me, you do not stand exposed in the wind. You stand within my arms. You have become used to weighing every word, afraid that one true sentence will topple a relationship. You have grown used to apologizing for your feelings, as though feelings were a fault. I hear your heart accelerate whenever you think of naming what is not right. I also hear your sigh after each time you choose silence again. But, my child, silence is not always virtue. Sometimes it is only a scar directing your steps. I am not calling you to shoot truth like an arrow. I am calling you out of the prison built from learned fear. Remember, truth does not need you to shout in order to carry power. It has weight even when spoken softly, and it carries peace even before it is spoken. I will teach you to distinguish between real danger and remembered danger. You do not need to answer immediately. You do not need to prove yourself at once. You do not need to win an argument to live rightly. I stand between you and your old reflexes, reminding you that today is not the day you are punished for honesty. Today is the day you are held as you speak what is true at the right time, in the right way, with the right rhythm. Therefore, when truth knocks at the door, Do not turn away too quickly. Let me be there first, opening the latch from the inside. I will give you words with boundaries, eyes that do not ask for permission, and a straight back that is not rigid. You will learn that true safety does not come from making yourself smaller, but from standing in the right place in me, where truth does not push you to the margins, but brings you back to the center of life. There are veils that were not pulled down by others, but raised by you, so that you could keep moving through your days without breaking apart. I name them for you not to shame you, but so they no longer lead you silently. There is a veil called "they will probably change," hung from the many times you waited a little longer, hoped one more time, telling yourself that if you were patient enough, things would be different. There is a veil called "maybe I misunderstood," woven from explanations that sound reasonable enough to help you ignore the heaviness in your chest whenever something does not align. And there is a veil called "everything will be fine," a gentle phrase that helps you sleep through the night, yet also keeps you staying far too long in a room without light. I say to you, I am not taking away your hope. I am removing false hope in order to return real hope to you. False hope lulls you into a fragile calm, where you must constantly explain away what hurts you. Real hope does not require defense. It stands firm even when you look directly at the truth. You mistook the absence of visible conflict for peace. But my peace does not require you to close your eyes in order to exist. My peace can endure light, endure questions, endure truth. I see how many times you chose false calm so that you would not hurt more. You told yourself to let it go, to endure a little longer, to not make a big deal out of it. Each time, you gained one quieter night, but lost a portion of your ability to trust yourself. You thought you were preserving harmony, but in truth, you were negotiating with reality in exchange for temporary safety. I do not condemn you for this. I simply show you the cost you have been quietly paying. When I lift the veil, you will realize how tired you have been from having to deceive yourself just to feel calm. You will see the difference between a calm that is untouched and a peace that has depth. False calm requires constant avoidance. True peace allows you to stand still without shrinking. False calm makes you afraid of loss. True peace frees you from clenching your grip. And when truth is revealed, you will no longer need to lull yourself to sleep with words your soul never fully believed. I am with you in that moment, when the veil trembles slightly before being drawn aside. Not all light arrives gently. Some light makes you blink because you have grown used to darkness. But I remind you, the pain is not because the light is cruel, but because your eyes have been in shadow for too long. I lift the veil, not to leave you exposed, but to free you from living in a room without air. And the moment you stop deceiving yourself for the sake of calm, you will begin to taste true peace, the kind of peace that does not require you to become smaller in order to survive. There are smiles that enter a room before the true person behind them does. I want you to learn to see this without bitterness. There are things you called kindness because they spoke softly, yet underneath lay a desire to control your breathing. There are things you called care because they asked at the right moments, yet behind each question was a string pulling you toward someone else's interests. I do not say this to make you suspicious. I say it so you will stop being naive in ways that exhaust you. Not every hand placed on your shoulder comes to lift you. Some hands come to keep you standing still where it suits them. I will give you discernment that you were never taught before, not through suspicion, but through the sensation of life itself. What nourishes life causes you to open, to breathe more deeply, to stand straighter while remaining humble. What drains life causes you to shrink, to ask permission to be yourself, to explain yourself just to feel at peace. You will learn to listen to your body, the rhythm of your heart when someone enters the room, the weight on your shoulders after a conversation, the nameless fatigue following sweet words of praise. These signals are not signs of weakness. They are wisdom I placed within you to keep you alive. You are not at fault for having trusted. I know you trusted because you desired what was good. because you saw good in others, because you hoped that kindness would meet kindness. I do not take that away from you. I add wisdom so that your goodness is no longer exploited. You will not turn to stone, you will become grounded. Grounded does not mean closed off. It means knowing which doors to open. It means knowing how to say enough without anger, how to leave without slander, how to keep a soft heart and a straight spine. I remind you of one short sentence to carry as a compass when facing smiling faces. I send you out as sheep. Matthew 1:0-1:6. Not so that you fear wolves, but so that you remember gentleness must walk together with wisdom. You will not lose your light when you learn to discern. Your light will simply leak less. And when you no longer confuse kindness with control, or care with exploitation, you will find that you can still love without being drained. That is when your maturity begins to stand firmly in me. I touch what you have avoided naming for too long, not to enlarge it, but to place it where it belongs. Betrayal did happen. My child, I do not deny that. It has form, a moment in time, people involved, and a wound it left behind. But I say this to you, clearly betrayal is an event, not an identity. It is not allowed to stand up and call itself your name. You are not the one who was abandoned, not the one who is always betrayed, not the one who is not enough to be kept. You are the one I hold, even in the moment when others let go. I know you have carried that memory like a label stuck to your skin. Wherever you went, you carried it with you. Every new choice, every new relationship, every new promise, you touched that label first, as if to remind yourself to be careful. I see how you reread the past through it, explain the present through it, and predict the future through the fear it left behind. But my child, that label is not your skin. It only stuck because you were hurt, not because it belongs to you. I will peel it away, not by ripping it off so that you go numb, but slowly, enough for you to feel it without being torn further. There will be pain, because the adhesive has clung for a long time. There will be sting, because you grew accustomed to treating it as part of yourself. But when it comes away, you will breathe differently. The memory will remain. I do not erase your mind, but its power will not. You will remember without being controlled. Look back without being pulled backward. Name it without trembling. You do not need to punish yourself to prove that you have learned the lesson. I do not require you to doubt everything in order to protect yourself from further harm. I am restoring to you the right to be who you were before the rupture, a person capable of trust, but not blindness, open-hearted, yet not unguarded. Betrayal does not have the authority to shape the posture in which you stand, nor does it have the right to decide the voice you use when you speak about yourself. I am the one who names you, and I do not name you according to your wounds. Let me do this work with you. Do not rush to be strong, and do not force yourself to appear fine. When the label is peeled away, emotions will surge: anger at having been deceived, grief over what was lost, pain for having believed. I am here for all of it. And when shame loosens its grip on memory, you will recognize a quiet truth: you are not weak because you were betrayed. You are strong because you are still standing. And you are held not by the past, but by my hand. When the veil is lifted, the first thing that rises within you is not always peace. I know how quickly the heat flares, how your heartbeat accelerates when the pieces lock into place and the truth stands exposed before your eyes. You want to speak at once, to answer back at once, to demand justice at once for what you endured. I speak to you now, not loudly, but firmly. Truth is not given to you so you may fire it back. Truth is given so you may walk free. It is a key, not a blade. If you grip it as a weapon, you will bind yourself with the very thing that was meant to open the way. I see how real that temptation is. You believe that if you say everything, expose everything, clarify everything, the pain will somehow be balanced. But retaliation does not return time, does not lighten memory, does not heal what has been torn. It only exchanges one prison for another, from the cell of confusion to the cell of noise. I do not forbid you from speaking the truth. I tell you not to turn truth into ammunition. My truth carries its own weight. It does not require an explosion to be effective. When you use it rightly, it opens doors. When you use it wrongly, it locks you inside the old cycle. Anger rises because you were wronged. I understand. You want the world to see what you saw, to taste what you tasted. But listen, as I draw you back from that threshold, your victory does not come from others bowing, but from your freedom to step out. You do not need to prove someone wrong in order to be right. You need to keep your soul from being pulled into a battle that gives you no life. My peace is not avoidance. Peace is the strength to stand without needing to strike. I teach you to place truth on the ground like a step, not to swing it like a club. You may choose silence while the heat is high, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. You may delay your words so your heart can cool, not out of weakness, but out of self-mastery. You may leave an argument before it turns you into a version of yourself you do not wish to carry forward. Each time you do this, another link of the old chain falls away, and the exit widens by one more step. Keep this sentence close when newly revealed truth makes your hands tremble, not to repay, but to get out. I am with you in that moment of choice. When you choose peace over noise, you do not lose, you win in a way that lasts, and the door of freedom opens not with thunder, but with a quiet, steady step, fully held by me. I show you what you did not dare to look at directly. You endured not because you were strong, but because you were afraid of losing people. You held on with everything you had, holding on through stacked appointments you no longer had the strength for, holding on through phone calls that made your heart sink each time the phone rang, holding on through a yes that escaped even when you were already empty. You told yourself that if you just gave a little more, endured a little longer, everything would be all right. But while you were holding on, pieces of yourself were falling to the ground without you noticing. I say this not to burden you with guilt, but to free you from confusing sacrifice with disappearance. You traded sleep for presence, peace for approval, your voice for the avoidance of departure. I saw you enter rooms with your back more curved each time, and leave with heavier shoulders each time. You thought you were protecting the connection, but in truth you were bleeding yourself to keep it breathing. And, my child, anything that requires you to bleed yourself in order to exist is not built on the life I give. I do not call you to hate anyone. I do not teach you to turn away in bitterness. I call you back to your own soul, the part that was set aside so others could be comfortable. You can love without self-destruction. You can remain without disappearing. Your presence is not the price you must pay to be with someone. I do not ask you to choose between love and yourself. I ask you to stop setting them against each other. True love does not require you to shrink to fit. It expands you so you can breathe. Listen carefully as I say this, so you do not miss it. Those who belong to you and me will not require you to bleed yourself to keep them. They will not demand that you always be available, always agreeable, always enduring in order to stay. They will not make you afraid every time your phone vibrates, turn appointments into burdens, or draw your yes out of exhaustion. You do not need to prove your worth through weariness. You do not need to purchase presence with depletion. I know this moment of recognition shakes your heart. There is sorrow for having given too much, regret for having stayed too long, fear of what might happen if you stop holding on. I am here to hold you through that fear. When you stop bleeding yourself, you do not lose love. You give love the chance to stand on life. And when you return to your own soul, you will discover something unexpected. You have not become smaller. You are the right size enough to be loved without disappearing. I lead you through silence not because I have turned away, but because I am clearing the way for you to hear more clearly. This silence is not punishment. It is the necessary space for human voices to soften, and for my voice to rise. You have grown accustomed to needing immediate responses, instant explanations, swift actions to quiet doubt. I know that restlessness when your hand reaches for the phone, when your mind arranges words for a conversation that has not yet happened, when your heart urges you to do something to ease the weight. But I say to you, stay here with me a little longer. Silence reveals the smaller waves that noise once concealed. In the stillness, you begin to hear yourself more clearly, the sentences you cut short, the things you justified so you could keep going. I place you here so truth is not diluted, not bent by other people's eyes, not shaped by the urgency to be understood immediately. You do not need more information, you need clarity. And clarity most often arrives when all other sounds recede. Listen to the rhythm I am setting for you now, slow and resolute. Do not rush to explain. Do not rush to prove. Do not rush to persuade. Each do not rush is a step by which I keep you from exhausting yourself further. Explaining while the heart is still heated turns truth into argument. Proving while the soul is still trembling turns truth into defense. Persuading before you are steady turns truth into a request for permission. I do not want you to spend your energy on what is unnecessary. In this silence, you will recognize something sufficient to change your direction, not the entire map. Not every answer. Just one core truth. It will stand quietly in the room, without shouting, without justification. You will know it because when you touch it, your body settles even if your mind still flickers. I am there, bearing witness to that moment. When the veil is lifted, you do not need to run. You only need to stand still long enough to see the way appear clear, contained, and enough for the next step. I set new boundaries for you, not through hardness, but through truth. You do not need anyone's permission to be treated with respect. Your dignity is not held in another's hand to grant or withdraw. I speak this to loosen a knot you have carried for too long, the knot that made you believe that to be allowed to stay you must endure, that to be loved you must soften yourself, that to keep peace you must bend yourself inward. But you were not created to ask permission for your own existence. You will learn to say no without feeling guilty, not a no spoken in anger, nor a no meant to punish, but a no that stands upright, clear enough to keep your soul from being invaded. You do not need long explanations to justify a boundary. You do not need to apologize for protecting the life I placed within you. I see fear rising, fear of being disliked, of being left, of being misunderstood, but within that very fear, I am rebuilding your spine, so you can stand without bracing yourself. When the veil is lifted, you will know what must stop, not because someone commanded it, but because within you there is now enough light to discern. I stand behind that decision. You do not need to argue to keep your boundaries. Your boundaries are kept by truth. There are calls you do not need to answer, invitations you do not need to accept, paths you do not need to follow, and each time you stop in the right place, you lose nothing. You are returned to yourself. Remember this, and carry it with you as an anchor. He slipped away from them, because his hour had not yet come. John 8:5-9, not fleeing, not fear, simply faithfulness to the timing I set. That is how my son kept boundaries without losing love. And that is also the path I give you, so you may be respected without asking permission, and remain in the light without shrinking back. I speak to you about who you are becoming, not as a distant idea, but as a truth growing within you day by day. You are no longer the version others once controlled, the version that had to ask permission to exist, to adjust your voice so as not to unsettle anyone, to make yourself smaller to fit. I began loosening those invisible cords before you even noticed. Each time you stand a little straighter, each time you choose what is true over what is convenient, each time you stop cutting yourself down to keep the peace, I am restoring you to the form I intended. I am giving back to you a voice that does not tremble, a light that does not need hiding, and an upright posture that does not require strain. You will hear your own voice more clearly, not louder, but steadier. You will see that your light is not harsh, yet strong enough that others cannot pretend not to see it. You will realize you no longer need long explanations to be understood. Your presence speaks for itself. This is not arrogance, this is maturity. I am not turning you into someone else. I am freeing you from the layers that were placed upon you. And, my child, there will be reactions. Those who were used to you being small will be unsettled when you are right-sized. They were accustomed to standing in the old shadow, the shadow you created when you bent yourself. But when you grow, the shadow changes. Not because you intend to block anyone, but because a larger tree casts shade differently. Those attached to the old shadow may become awkward, some irritated. Some may try to pull you back down so they do not have to adjust. I tell you this beforehand so you will not be surprised. Will not doubt yourself. Will not turn back. I do not apologize for maturing you. I do not apologize for you standing at your true height. I do not apologize that your light exposes places others are not ready to face. You do not need to shrink to keep harmony. True harmony does not require your disappearance. You do not need permission to grow. Growth is the natural consequence of abiding in me. When storms come, whispers, unfamiliar looks, new tests, you will tremble and still step forward. I am there, as roots for you to cling to, as a trunk for you to stand upon, as a canopy to shelter you from the rain, so you may grow without breaking, shine without burning, stand true without becoming alone. Now you stand at a place where every path demands a choice. And I do not make this moment light. Before you are two ways, one preserves a false peace to avoid losing face. Friction, change, the other steps into truth to live. Even if it costs leaving what is familiar. I speak plainly. Without concealment, false peace gives you quiet nights but steals tomorrow. Truth makes you tremble at first but returns to you a long breath. Your body already knows this. Your chest tightens when you stay. Your shoulders lighten when you speak truth, and I will not let you be confused any longer. I do not force, I invite. But I also speak honestly. Truth will come. It comes like dawn that does not ask the night's permission. You may choose to welcome it or resist it, to stand upright or to step aside. If you resist, you will spend energy maintaining the cover. If you welcome it, you will need courage to step into the light. I do not threaten you with consequences. I give you the power of choice. For maturity begins there. Listen to your heartbeat as I speak. It is no longer asking permission. It is demanding life. This decision does not allow delay. Your hands are cold because your body knows this is not small. Every reason you once used to stay lines up in your mind. Every false hope that lulled you whispers, just a little longer. But truth stands there, unraised voice. No negotiation. You may feel as though you are losing face before others. But I ask you this, how much you have already lost of yourself to keep the peace? How many nights have you paid for a harmony that would not last? I do not dismiss your fear. I place it where it belongs. So it no longer drives you. The rhythm quickens. You sense the door opening. You see the curtain tremble. You hear the invitation. Choose false peace. And you preserve appearances. Choose truth. And you preserve life. Choose avoidance. And you prolong depletion. Choose to step forward. And you begin to be restored. I am right here, not at the end of the road, but beside you in the very first step. And hold this sentence as an anchor when your heart trembles enough to want to turn back. I am with you when the curtain is drawn back. The curtain is pulled aside, and you stand still in a moment when every sound seems to recede. There are no more arguments, no more assumptions, no more places to hide. The truth appears not as loudly as you expected, but with a weight that makes you slow your breathing just to remain steady. You see clearly what has been happening, what was concealed, and what you concealed, even from yourself. There is pain, because illusions that once helped you survive are falling away. There is also lightness, because at last you no longer have to strain to maintain what was never real. You realize that truth does not come to make you collapse, but to set you back on your true center. It does not push you down, it corrects your stance. The pieces fall into place without your needing to explain anything further to anyone. In that light, you are no longer defined by what others have done to you, nor by what you have endured. You are named again clearly and wholly. And as that name resonates within you, fear begins to retreat. You see that the path ahead is not a hurried escape, but a new way of living. You understand that freedom is not the absence of memory, but the moment when memory no longer holds authority. You stand there not alone, for I am right beside you, close enough to keep you from losing your way, firm enough for you to lean on. Truth makes you tremble for a moment, then lifts you from the familiar ground of false peace. You step across the threshold without noise, sustained by faithfulness alone, and right there, a sentence lodges like an arrow. Needing no further explanation, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. After seeing the truth, your first reflex is not to run, but to soften. I know that moment when your body wants to fold inward, when tears arrive without asking permission, when your heart feels both loss and gain without knowing how to name it. I speak to you right then. You are allowed to hurt, but you are not required to remain in pain. Truth does not come to destroy you, it comes to break chains. And when the chains fall, your body needs a rhythm to learn freedom again. This rhythm I hold for you. There are days after the veil is lifted that feel strangely unfamiliar. Food tastes bland even though you are hungry. Messages from others arrive as usual, as if nothing has changed. While everything within you is trembling, you may feel more fragile than before, more easily tired, more easily moved to tears. I do not call this regression. I call it your body relearning trust in the light. You have just let go of a layer of covering. New air against your skin needs time to warm. I am there when you feel like collapsing, not standing at a distance, urging you to be strong, and not carrying you in a way that robs you of your step. I steady you through very small, very real things. A full, deep breath, a longer night of sleep than usual, a morning when you do not have to explain yourself to anyone. I teach you to discern between healing pain and destructive pain. Healing pain lets you cry and then exhale. Destructive pain demands self-punishment to prove worthiness. I keep you from the latter. You will learn that truth does not make you isolated, it makes you selective. Some people will pass through your life as before, others will slow their pace because they sense your rhythm has changed. I do not require you to explain everything. You do not need to tell your story to every ear. I ask only that you stay close to me. So these days do not become a place where you accuse yourself for not being okay quickly enough. Restoration is not linear, it is a curve that is held. Remain with me in this gentler rhythm. Do not rush to label every emotion. Let them pass like light rain. I will be with you through each day after the veil is lifted, until you notice that you are standing more steadily without strain, lighter without having to prove anything. I hold you not to spare you from pain, but to lead you through pain without breaking you. The peace I give you is not numbness, nor an empty state devoid of feeling. I speak so you understand rightly. Peace is being held while still feeling. You will still sense sadness when you remember, still feel a sharpness when a memory passes, still have moments when your heart sinks without warning. But it is different now. Those feelings no longer carry you away. They are held within my arms. You do not need to force yourself to be fine to prove that truth has not broken you. True peace allows you to be honest with your emotions without being swept up by them. You do not need to explain yourself to everyone. You do not need to retell your story to gain understanding. You do not need to satisfy curious gazes. I call you to stay near me, near enough to feel your breathing slow, near enough to realize you do not have to run. Near me, you learn to put the phone down, to step away from draining conversations, and to choose silences that nourish your life. You are not avoiding the world, You are choosing the right place to stand so you are not thrown off balance. I begin to change the rhythm of your life in ways that are small yet unmistakably real. Less proving because your worth does not require a stage. Less asking permission because your boundaries are backed by me. Less self-punishment because you are no longer living to atone for what was never yours. This new rhythm is not loud, it is warm. It is like warm water running over your hands after a long day. Like a clean blanket laid across your shoulders when you are weary. Like early light entering a room never harsh, yet enough to tell you the day has begun. You will notice yourself breathing more deeply without effort. Your steps lighter without haste. You allow yourself to live not quickly, but rightly. My peace does not take away feeling. It gives you a foundation so feelings can pass without making you collapse. And within this gentle rhythm, you will know that you are being held not to escape life, but to be in life with a heart that remains soft and a back that is finally straight. I begin to give you a new language, not so you can win arguments, but so you no longer poison yourself when speaking truth. Hear me clearly, speaking truth is not the same as being cruel. My truth does not require raised voices, sharp edges, or causing pain to prove its validity. When you stand in the right place, your words become clean. They do not fire outward to wound. They open space to bring an old cycle to its end. You will learn how to leave without destroying. There are doors that close in silence and are still rightly closed. There are steps backward that are not defeat, but the choice not to remain where you are being distorted. I teach you to close doors without cursing because curses keep you lingering longer than open doors ever could. When you no longer need to make noise, you are freer, and that is strength, purity in speech, clarity in choice, and refusing to let the toxins of the past pass through your mouth again. You can say what needs to be said in a normal voice, without trembling from fear of being misunderstood. You can set boundaries with a single sentence, without lengthy explanations. You can say enough without retelling the entire story. You can be silent at the right moment without feeling cowardly. You do not need sarcasm to cover your pain. You do not need to repeat old wrongs to defend yourself. You do not need to prove yourself right by making someone else wrong. You do not need to use words like knives in order to feel powerful. When your language is cleansed, you are no longer pulled back into old scripts, the conversations that make your heart sink, the familiar reactions that exhaust you before you even understand what happened. You stand more firmly because your words no longer betray the choices you have made. And in that steadiness, you discover a new freedom, the freedom to speak truth while keeping your soul intact. I'm not only removing what has drained you, I'm also preparing to place into your life what fits your soul more precisely. I say this to steady your heart. The emptiness you feel is not an abandoned void, but a space being cleared. When I remove what does not belong, I do not leave you suspended in nothingness. I lead you onto another path, not rushed, but real, not loud, but enduring. You will begin to notice that new encounters arrive very differently. There is no longer the feeling of having to strain to be accepted. Kindness is no longer exploited as an endless resource. You will find yourself treated with a quiet respect, where words and actions align. The people I bring will not require you to prove your worth. They recognize your light without demanding that you dim it to suit them. I will also open opportunities that do not require you to trade away your soul. You will step into work, relationships, and directions where peace is not the price paid at the end, but the companion present from the beginning. You will find yourself moving more slowly than before, yet every step will be sure. No need to run, no need to compete, no need to hold your breath to keep your place. As on the day Elijah was exhausted, I did not give a long explanation. I placed bread and water beside him. Let him eat, then rest, then eat again, and only then rise to continue. I do the same with you in a similarly gentle way. I nourish you sufficiently before calling you to go farther. And when you walk, you will know this is the true path, because it does not require you to leave yourself behind. I speak so that you hear clearly, not with thunder, but with a light strong enough that no shadow can hide. You do not need to remain in half-light, half-dark places to preserve something called peace. That kind of peace has made you shrink, taught you to stay silent so as not to discomfort others, trained you to live suspended in between. But you were not created for in between. You were created to stand upright in what is true. You belong to truth, because you belong to me. It is not truth that made you unsafe. It was ambiguity that slowly wore you down. When you step into the light, you are not betraying anyone. You are simply ceasing to betray yourself. I do not call you out of shadow so that you must fight. I call you out so that you may rest in a place where vigilance is no longer required. You belong to the light where things are named rightly, where you do not need to justify why you require boundaries, where you no longer have to bend yourself to fit the expectations of others. You belong to the light where you are seen whole, including healed scars and the strength still growing within you. You belong to the light, and that light does not dazzle you, it steadies you. I will make your truth a foundation, no longer a storm. Truth will no longer rush at you as a threat, but lie beneath your feet as solid ground. You will stand there, breathe deeply, and know that you no longer need to return to shadow in order to be accepted. Here, you are given rest. Here, your self-respect is restored. Here, you no longer have to shrink in order to live. I know that before you step into this final seal, your soul needs a little more space to stand firmly in what has been revealed, not to doubt again, but to allow the truth that has just been uncovered to settle into a foundation. For there are things you may understand with the mind if you move too quickly, but if you remain a little longer, you will understand them in your bones. After the veil is lifted, you will notice something strange. The outer world does not change immediately, but something inside you has shifted off its old axis. Things that once silenced you suddenly lose their weight. Words that once drove you into self-blame begin to sound hollow, and that very hollowness can frighten you, because you grew used to the noise of ambiguity, accustomed to having a reason to endure, trained to call pain loyalty. When those reasons fall away, you stand there with empty hands, nothing left to cling to. This is not loss. This is freedom learning how to stand. I do not rush you forward. I stand beside you in that unsteady moment. When you ask yourself, then who am I now? If I no longer have to brace, I answer with presence, not with definitions. You do not need a new label yet. You need to learn how to remain in truth without shrinking. This takes time, not the world's time, but the rhythm of a soul learning how to breathe rightly. You will notice that some people still speak as before, act as before, demand as before, and in those moments, the temptation to return to ambiguity will arise not because you are weak, but because you remember what is familiar. Familiar is not safe. Familiar is simply what your mind knows how to manage. I do not fault you for remembering. I only remind you to remember one more thing: returning will make you smaller. No one may see it immediately, but your soul will know. There will be days when you feel sad without knowing why. That sadness is not a sign that you have failed. It is the sorrow of someone who has just stepped out of a dark room while their eyes are still adjusting to the light. You lived so long in dimness that darkness came to feel normal. When light arrives, you need time to relearn how to see. I am there, not rushing you, not withdrawing the light, only shading your eyes with my hand so that you are not overwhelmed. I want you to understand this deeply. Truth does not demand that you act immediately. Truth asks that you be honest with yourself first. There are doors that will close on their own when you no longer walk toward them. There are connections that will loosen by themselves when you stop bleeding yourself to keep them alive. You do not need hurried words to make everything clear. You make things clear by showing up differently. In this space, I teach you something very practical. Pay attention to your body. When you are near truth, your body breathes differently. Your shoulders lower, Your jaw releases. Your heart no longer needs to race in preparation for defense. By contrast, when you stand near ambiguity, your body sounds the alarm before your mind does. Do not ignore those signals anymore. I placed discernment in your soul, and I placed wisdom in your body. You will learn to speak more slowly, not because you are afraid, but because you no longer need to prove anything. There are sentences you once spoke to keep the peace that you will no longer say. There are words you once swallowed to avoid trouble that you now replace with a silence that has boundaries. This silence is not the old silence. The old silence erased you. The new silence preserves you. I also want you to be prepared for this when you step into the light. Not everyone will be pleased. Not because you are wrong, but because light rearranges order. Those who are used to controlling through ambiguity will feel unsettled. Those who benefited from your kindness without boundaries will feel off balance. You do not need to fix them. You only need to refuse to step back into old roles to make them comfortable. At times you will ask yourself, if I stay a little longer, would it really matter? That question sounds gentle, but I know its source. It comes from fear of losing connection. I answer you this way. Connections that require you to trade your soul to keep them were never yours in me. You are not called to be alone, but you are also not called to remain in agreements that drain you. In the quiet before you place your final mark, I invite you to look back at the path you have just walked, not to analyze it, but to recognize the change. Do you notice that you no longer need to explain yourself as much as before? Do you see that you ask less permission to be who you are? Do you sense a new spine holding you upright? Even while your knees still tremble, that is not self-discipline. It is the result of standing in truth long enough for it to become a foundation. I am not saying that everything will be easy from here. I am saying that everything will be real, and truth, though not always gentle, always leads you to the right place. You will no longer ask yourself each night, "Where did I go wrong?" You will ask a different question, lighter, yet stronger. Was I faithful to what I have seen? That question will carry you farther than any strategy. Now, as you are standing a little steadier, as your breathing has evened out, as the light no longer overwhelms you, I invite you to take one more small step, not a step of outward action, but a step of inward choice. From here, you are ready to place a mark, not to prove strength, but to confirm that you will not return to false peace. I give you a little more space, not to delay, but to seal what has been opened. There are doors that, if not walked through slowly enough, cause old habits to be carried into new places. I do not want you to bring ambiguity into freedom. I want you to step in with empty hands, but with a heart fully awake. You will notice this after truth is revealed. Your mind will want to restructure the story. It will ask, what if I had said it differently? What if I interpreted it more gently? What if I gave it more time? These questions are not evil. They are familiar, self-protection. But I remind you, do not use thought to cover over what you have already seen. Truth does not need to be softened by reasoning. It needs to be held by faithfulness. There will be mornings when you wake up feeling strangely normal. No intensity, no fear, and that very normality will unsettle you. You were accustomed to living on tension, to measuring the value of a day by the amount of pain in it. When calm arrives, you do not know where to place yourself. I tell you this, it is a sign of healing. Your soul is relearning a rhythm not built on vigilance. I also tell you ahead of time there will be moments when you miss familiar people, familiar settings, even things that once wounded you. Memory does not disappear simply because you chose truth. But memory no longer holds the wheel. It passes like a cloud. It is no longer the sky. When memory touches you, you do not need to push it away. You only need to remind yourself, I have already seen this. I am already somewhere else. You will begin to recognize the subtle difference between compassion and misplaced self-sacrifice. Before, you blurred the two. You believed love meant enduring, yielding, disappearing so others could breathe. Now, with truth as your foundation, you learn to love without vanishing. You learn to show mercy without cutting yourself away. This is not selfishness, it is right order. I allow you to experience small moments that confirm you are moving in the right direction, a time you say no and your heart does not collapse, a time you remain silent without guilt, a time you leave without a long explanation. These moments are quiet, but they build a spine, and that spine will hold you when stronger winds come. I am also preparing you for quiet joy, not excitement, but depth. The joy of someone who no longer has to monitor others' reactions in order to survive. The joy of someone who knows they are held, even when no one applauds. This joy does not come once, it comes steadily. And steadiness itself is the miracle of one who has stepped out of ambiguity. Now, as you read this, if you notice your heart is no longer rushing, if you feel your hands unclench, if you sense a quiet readiness, this is the sign. Not a sign to wait longer, but to choose. Choose not to return. Choose not to collude. Choose not to call false peace peace anymore. I am here, and you are ready to step into the final part, not the biggest part, but the truest one. I do not ask you to do something great to prove anything. I only ask you to place one small mark, so small no one else needs to know, yet real enough for heaven to recognize. Tonight, or even right now, choose one boundary, not 10 things, not a long plan, just one thing. You know clearly you will no longer collude with ambiguity. It may be a conversation you have been avoiding because you fear making someone uncomfortable. It may be a habit that has trained you to doubt yourself. It may be a connection that has drained you, yet has been kept alive out of pity. I do not need you to explain it to anyone. I do not need you to announce it. I only need you to be faithful before me, faithful to what you have seen, what you have known, what you can no longer unknow. You will tremble, and that does not make you weak. You will hesitate for a moment, and I will still be there. Courage is not the absence of trembling. Courage is standing still within the trembling and still choosing what is right. When you place this mark, you are not starting a war. You are stepping out of an unspoken agreement that kept you in a false peace. And I confirm that choice with my presence. Now, do one very specific thing. Write down one sentence, just one, and keep it as a covenant. I choose truth. No explanation is needed. No one else's signature is required. Only you and me. This mark is small, but it opens a new path. One where you no longer have to persuade yourself that ambiguity is peace. I hear what you are about to say before your lips open. I do not need you to be stronger than you are right now. I need you to be real. So say to me one short sentence, without polish. Without protection, I am afraid, but I choose yes. That is enough. That sentence does not make you smaller. It places you where you belong, where I can lead you. You will not have to walk the days ahead by painful memory or thin willpower. I am here to teach you step by step, without haste, without abandonment. When you falter, I remind you. When you lose rhythm, I wait. When you want to turn back because it feels familiar, I stand between you and the old path so you can breathe again. You do not need more evidence to convince yourself. Evidence comes later. Like flowers blooming after roots have chosen their soil. What I ask of you today is a small obedience, one step honest enough to keep you from returning to ambiguity. Humble enough to receive guidance. That obedience is not loud, it creates peace. And I speak softly, only once, so you can hear without fear, my beloved child. You are not alone. The word you have just spoken has been held, and the road ahead has been opened at the pace you are able to walk. If you feel that you have just been touched not by a surge of emotion, but by a quiet clarity, allow that moment to have a voice. You do not need long words, just one short prayer, true to where you are standing. A sentence honest enough for me to hear, and light enough that you do not have to strain. That prayer is not meant to persuade me. It opens your heart to be held. Then, when it feels right, share this message with someone you know who is living in ambiguity and self-blame. No explanation is required. No pressure to understand. Simply place the light in their hands, and let me do the rest. Light does not argue. Light is present. There are souls who only need to know that they are not imagining things, not alone, and not forgotten. Finally, keep this as a reminder for yourself, for the days you forget, for the moments you hesitate. Keep it not to return to pain, but to remember what you chose. I lifted the veil so you could be free, and that freedom is preserved by truthful memory. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Psalm 2:7-1. May the word of the Lord continually remind you to live each day in His faith and love. Please subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss the sacred and meaningful messages God desires to share. May God bless you. Amen.